Sportsmanlike on ESPN Radio earlier this morning, offering his thoughts on where he thinks the relationship stands between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones. Listen.
For all I know, the two sides decide to sit down at the bargaining table and they hammer out a deal that makes Micah the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Could that happen? Yes. There's zero indication, that that's going to happen, that there's going to be a reverse. And it sounds like at some point in time, whether that's now, after the season, after 2 seasons, it sounds like the two sides are headed towards a divorce at some time.
The minute he uses the word divorce, all of a sudden we are paying close attention. So as promised, that's Damian Woody. Here's Chris Canty from Unsportsmanlike Radio. Graziano continues with us here as well. So he just said this on your show earlier this morning. Give us whatever context you can add here and your thoughts on the possibility that this extraordinary player that I keep saying, the Cowboys moved back in the draft to take him. I mean, it's one of the great moves that we've seen on draft day in a long time. They develop him, he becomes a superstar, and now we have the word divorce being used to describe their relationship. Your thoughts?
Well, it was an atom bomb. It shocked me. It felt revelatory in so many different ways because we've all operated under the assumption that Jerry Jones is doing this just for the show. This is P.T. Barnum, and the NFL is his circus.
Right.
He is the greatest entertainer, and he is the greatest salesman simultaneously. But Adam said that this feels different in terms of how Jerry has handled these negotiations as opposed to star players in the past. Think CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, even Trayvon Diggs going back a couple of years, where they did those deals in the 11th hour before the start of the regular season. It actually feels like now we're at a contractual stalemate, and there's a chance that we may have seen Micah Parsons play his last game for the Dallas Cowboys.
Graziano, help me. You talk to the people all the time.
Yes.
What is your sense of just where this is?
Yeah, I mean, as recently as late last week, I was being told in no uncertain terms he's going to be a Cowboy. Like, they're not interested in moving on from him, not interested in trading him. But, you know, Adam Schefter says something. Did you say, by the way, Atom Bomb or Atom Bomb? Because I like that. I hadn't heard that before.
A-D-A-M
Anyway,
yeah.
That was good. Anyway, you have to pay attention. Now, look, they could franchise him for 2026. They could franchise him for 2027 if they wanted to play hardball. And if he wants to play hardball, he can not show up. And we'll find out here in a couple of weeks. Well, it's 2 weeks from Thursday, right?
Thursday, correct.
So if he's actually willing to sit out games. If he is, then that escalates it. But it does not feel like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott felt last year. It does not feel like this is a thing where they're going to pick up conversations here in the next couple of weeks and get a deal done at the last second. It feels like Jerry really believes he and Micah agreed to something in the spring and that Micah somehow went back on it. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's the way Jerry feels, and it seems like it has gotten personal.
So a situation where, to use a different word to describe what you were talking about, it always feels performative with the Cowboys. Signing Dak Prescott on the opening Sunday last year felt performative. This, and Schefter and I talked about it yesterday, does feel different because while Jerry Jones is a showman and a marketer and a salesman, he's also a proud guy, right? He's a person with an ego, and he feels wronged in this situation, and that's what makes it different. And once that happens, it could go almost any direction. D. Wood, as you listen to this, and obviously you've been following the ups and downs of this now throughout, I guess, this entire offseason. What is your sense of it?
I'm shocked, to be honest with you, because the one thing we know about Jerry Jones is he signs his stars. There's no question about it. Whether you're talking about CeeDee Lamb or Trayvon Diggs or Dak Prescott, that's what he's done throughout his tenure as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. And to see how things have deteriorated to this point, I look at, Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a different cat, a different breed. He's not, quote unquote, what I call a corporate guy. I think, that's where the things kind of go in a different direction as far as how these other guys got signed as far as Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons, man, he's going to do him. He's going to do his own thing. And so there's been some type of, as far as the communication is concerned, a breakdown. And now we're talking about a guy who's 25, 26 years old, one of the best players that we have in this game. And you can't get a deal done before the season. Now we're at the point where we're talking about dealing away one of the best players in the National Football League. It's very shocking to me.
And there was a story that was circulating yesterday or the day before about how the Patriots are, talking about Elliot Wolf, who's their general manager, was talking about how, we're always looking to make deals and all that. And I think I was hearing on your show this morning, for a couple of minutes that I was able to listen before we came on here, that you were sort of putting those together. The possibility that maybe the Cowboys do entertain trading him, and if so, that could become something that transforms one of the other teams in the NFL.
Well, I think it could transform both teams if the Dallas Cowboys make that decision. Remember, Jerry Jones was around for the great trade robbery when Jimmy Johnson shipped Herschel Walker to Minnesota.
Right.
And that became the foundation for the 90s Cowboys dynasty. So I do think this has the potential to be a win-win if you do it the right way. But here's the problem that I have with this. The Cowboys have let it now come to this part of the calendar where there are going to be less teams involved when it comes to being able to get maximum return for Micah Parsons. If you do it before free agency, if you do it before the draft, there are so many other bidders when it comes to the Micah Parsons trade proposition. Now you're limiting your pool. Now, to answer your question, the New England Patriots have the resources. They have the cap space. They have the draft capital. If that is something that the Dallas Cowboys are open to doing, the New England Patriots should absolutely try to execute that deal, because that takes them to a team now that you have to watch out for once they get into the tournament.
That's the big if, right? Once so if a team calls the Cowboys right now about Micah Parsons, what they're hearing is, we're not interested in trading him, we're interested in signing him long term, we've made the effort, we think it'll work out. The team says, all right, if it changes, keep us in mind. Right? So that's where those conversations are. And at this point, we'll see. Again, he can shift the leverage back toward himself, Micah Parsons I'm talking about, by not showing up for week 1 against the Eagles. And then they give up 40 points. And then we see what Jerry does. But right now, there has been nothing that has changed the situation at all here in the last month.
Listen, history tends to repeat itself. I've pointed this out before. 1993, Emmitt Smith, who was as good a player on his side of the ball as Micah Parsons is on his, sat out the first 2 games. Jerry Jones was the owner at that time as well. Sat out the first 2 games. Then they got a deal done. They went on to win the Super Bowl, and Emmitt Smith was the MVP of the Super Bowl. So history suggests that these things can get done even if they get into the season. I don't recall how personal that thing got with Jerry then. I know how it is now. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, when last season ended, D-Wood, I said the Cowboys should trade Micah Parsons. I felt the Cowboys were closer to a rebuild than they were a championship. I used the Herschel Walker example. It's the easy one and the obvious one that jumps to mind. I said trade him, get 2 number 1s and a bunch of other stuff, and start over again, build around Dak Prescott and whatever it is, and you could jumpstart that. If they had chosen to do this in March, what I'm trying to say, D-Wood, is that would have made a lot of sense to me. But that's not what they're doing. They're not doing this because they've decided strategically it is the best thing to do. They're doing it because the relationship between Jerry Jones and the player has deteriorated. And D-Wood, that's a scary place for it to be.
It is, because it seems like everything's just based off of emotion and not strategy. And I will say this, is Jimmy Johnson picking those players if you trade Michael Parsons for a haul? That's the reason why the Dallas Cowboys had that dynasty in the 90s, because of Jimmy Johnson being shrewd as far as that's concerned. But listen, I totally agree, because I